Hash the Dragon Princess failed every test until human single dad Janitor instructed her to start from zero. Hash Part 1. The red light on the screen was the worst color in the universe. Princess Yura of the Dracari Empire stared at it and felt her heart sink to her feet. She had failed again. The 17th test. The 17th failure. The holographic display showed her score for everyone to see. 0 out of 100. Not even 1 point. Around her, 300 students from different planets turned to look at her. Some felt sorry for her. Others laughed quietly behind their hands. A few just shook their heads like she was the saddest thing they had ever seen. Yura was a Dracari. Her people were the most powerful warriors in this part of the galaxy. They stood 7 feet tall with scales harder than metal. They could breathe plasma fire hot enough to melt steel. They had conquered 47 star systems and ruled them for 10,000 years. Her father, Emperor Tisung, commanded the largest fleet of warships anyone had ever seen. And his only daughter could not even light a small flame. Yura wrapped her tail around her ankle. She always did this when she was nervous or scared. It was a bad habit, but she could not stop. She wished she could disappear into the floor. She wished she had never been born. The Academy on Station Kepler 77 was supposed to be her second chance. Back on her home planet, she had failed every trial. The trainers had tried everything. Special lessons, extra practice, rare medicines. Nothing worked. Her plasma glands were weak. Her fire was almost nothing. She was a dragon who could not breathe fire. Her father had sent her to this space station because it had teachers from 93 different species. Maybe one of them could help her. Maybe their strange methods would unlock the power that everyone believed was hiding inside her. But 3 months had passed. Nothing had changed. If anything, she was getting worse. Her instructor floated toward her. Advisor Prism was a Velith, a being made of living crystal. Light passed through his body and made rainbows on the walls. He was beautiful to look at, but his words were always ugly. "Your Highness," he said, his voice sounded like glass breaking. "I have taught students from 93 species. I have helped the weakest become strong. I have guided the confused to clarity, but you," he paused. The rainbow light seemed to dim. "I have never seen anyone so completely unable to use their own power. Perhaps the whispers are true. Perhaps you are simply broken." Yura did not answer. What could she say? He was right. She was broken. She had always been broken. The other students walked past her to leave the examination hall. None of them spoke to her. A few months ago, they had tried to be her friend. She was a princess, after all. Being close to her could bring them power and favor. But now she was just an embarrassment. Being seen with her might make them look bad too. She stood alone in the empty hall for a long time. The holographic display had turned off, but she could still see the red light in her mind. It would never go away. That night Yura could not sleep. Her room was beautiful, filled with expensive things from her home planet. Silk sheets the color of midnight. Furniture carved from rare wood that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. A window that showed the stars. She hated all of it. She put on simple clothes and left her room. She did not know where she was going. She just needed to walk. She needed to be somewhere else, anywhere else. The upper levels of the station were clean and bright. Important people lived there. Diplomats, wealthy merchants, royal students like herself. But Yura did not want to be around important people. She took the elevator down. The lower levels were different. The lights were dimmer. The walls were older. The air smelled like cleaning chemicals and machine oil. This was where the workers lived, the people who kept the station running, the people that everyone else forgot about. Yura walked through narrow corridors past recycling plants and water processors. She saw workers in plain uniforms moving heavy containers. She saw maintenance robots fixing pipes. Nobody looked at her twice. Down here, a Dracari princess was just another strange alien. She found a small observation deck at the end of a long hallway. It was old and dusty. Clearly, nobody came here anymore. But it had a large window that showed the black emptiness of space and the distant lights of stars. Yura sat down on the dusty floor and stared at the stars. She wondered if any of them had planets where she could hide, places where nobody knew her name, places where she could just be a normal person who failed at normal things. She was so lost in thought that she did not notice the sound at first. A soft swishing noise, repeated over and over, swish, swish, swish. She turned around and saw a human. He was mopping the floor. Yura had never met a human before. They were a new species in the galaxy. They had only joined the coalition a few decades ago. Most aliens thought they were boring. Humans had no special powers. They could not breathe fire or fly or read minds. They were small and soft and died quickly. The only reason they had survived, other species said, was because they were too stubborn to know when to give up. This human was older. He had gray hair at the sides of his head and lines around his eyes. He wore a simple uniform with the station's cleaning department logo. He pushed his mop across the floor with slow, steady movements. He did not seem to notice her at first. Then he looked up. His eyes were a warm brown color. He nodded politely at her and then continued mopping. Yura was confused. "You are not going to bow." In every place she had ever been, people bowed to her. She was a princess. It was required. The human shrugged. "My hands are full right now, and my daughter says I hurt my back when I try to bow properly." "Your daughter?" "Hana, she is 8 years old. She thinks she is the boss of this whole station." He smiled. It was a simple smile, tired but warm. "She is probably right." Yura did not know what to say. Nobody had ever talked to her like this. So casual, so normal, like she was just another person and not the disappointing daughter of an emperor. "What are you doing down here, if you do not mind me asking?" the human said. He did not stop mopping. "This is not a place for important people." "I am not important," Yura heard herself say. The words came out before she could stop them. "I am nothing." The human stopped mopping. He looked at her more carefully now. His eyes were not judgmental. They were just curious, maybe a little concerned. "That is a heavy thing to say about yourself." "It is true." Yura felt the words pouring out of her like water from a broken pipe. "I am a failure. I cannot do what my people do. I cannot breathe fire. I cannot pass tests. I am a princess who brings only shame to her family." She did not know why she was telling this to a stranger, a human stranger, a cleaning worker, but somehow it felt safe. He did not know who she was supposed to be. He had no expectations for her to fail. The human leaned on his mop and listened. He did not interrupt. He did not tell her she was wrong. He did not offer empty words of comfort. He just listened. When she finished, her eyes were wet. She had not cried in front of anyone for years. Dracari warriors did not cry. But here, in this dusty, forgotten room, she let a few tears fall. The human reached into his pocket and pulled out a small cloth. He handed it to her. "It is clean, I promise." Yura took it and wiped her eyes. "Thank you." "My name is Doyun," he said. "Doyun Park." "I am Yura." Just Yura, no royal title. She almost smiled. Just Yura for now. Doyun nodded like this made perfect sense. He picked up his mop again and started cleaning. But he did not leave. He stayed in the observation deck with her, working in comfortable silence while she stared at the stars. For the first time in months, Yura did not feel completely alone. The Dragon Princess failed every test until human single dad Janitor instructed her to start from zero. Part 2. Yura returned to the observation deck the next night. She told herself she just wanted to look at the stars again. But really, she was hopping to see the human janitor. Doyun was there. He was fixing a broken light panel on the ceiling. His tools were old but clean. He worked with careful movements like every action mattered. "You came back," he said without looking down. Is that a problem? No, just surprising. Most important people do not visit the same place twice, especially not places like this. Yura sat down on an old crate near the window. I told you, I am not important. Do-yun climbed down from his ladder and put away his tools. And I told my daughter I would stop eating sweets at night. We both know that is not true. He sat down on another crate across from her. In the dim light she could see his face better. He looked tired, not just from work but from life. There was something heavy behind his eyes, but also something warm. How old are you? Yura asked. She knew it was rude to ask a human their age. Their lives were so short compared to other species, but she was curious. 42, Do-yun said, in human years. Yura was 23. In Dracari years, she was still a child. Her people lived for 300 years or more, but she knew that 42 was middle-aged for humans. Do-yun had probably lived more than half his life already. That seems very short, she said quietly. Do-yun laughed. It was a soft sound, not bitter at all. It is, but we make do with what we have. Humans are good at that. What do you mean? We are not strong like your people. We cannot fly like the Velith. We do not live long like the Alori, but we survive. We adapt. We find ways to do things that nobody thought possible. He shrugged. Stubbornness, mostly. We are too stupid to know when to give up. Yura thought about this. It was strange. Most species looked down on humans. They called them primitive, weak, unimportant. But there was something in Do-yun's words that sounded like pride. Tell me about your daughter, she said. Hana. Do-yun's face changed. The tiredness was still there, but something brighter pushed through. Love, simple and pure. Hana is 8 years old. She has her mother's eyes and her father's stubbornness. She goes to the station school during the day and does her homework in my cleaning closet at night. He pulled out a small photograph from his pocket. It showed a little girl with black hair and 2 ponytails, smiling with a gap where her front teeth should be. She is beautiful, Yura said. She is trouble, Do-yun corrected, but he was smiling. She talks to everyone, makes friends with aliens 10 times her size. Last week, she convinced a Kralith warrior to have a tea party with her stuffed animals. A Kralith warrior. They are known for being fierce and proud. Hana does not care about that, she just sees people. He put the photograph away. Her mother was the same way. Yura noticed the past tense, was. The brightness in Do-yun's eyes dimmed. Minji died 4 years ago. Shuttle accident, a malfunction during transport. They said it was quick, that she did not suffer. He looked at his hands. I hope that is true. I am sorry. Thank you, he said it simply, without drama, like he had accepted his pain and learned to carry it. After she died, I needed work that would let me stay close to Hana. Engineering jobs require travel, dangerous missions, long hours, but cleaning is steady, safe. I can work at night while Hana sleeps and be there when she wakes up. You gave up your career for her. I gave up nothing. I chose what mattered most. He looked at her with those warm brown eyes. That is not giving up, that is choosing. Yura did not know what to say. In her world, people did not make choices like that. Royal Dracari served their empire first, family second. Personal happiness was not even on the list. They talked for hours that night. Do-yun told her about Earth, the human home planet, blue oceans and green forests and cities made of glass and steel. He told her about human food, especially something called kimchi that he missed very much. He told her about human music and books and art. In return, Yura told him about the Dracari Empire, the great palace where she grew up, with rooms so large you could fly in them. The training grounds where young warriors learned to control their fire. The pressure she felt every day to be worthy of her father's name. It sounds lonely, Do-yun said. It is very lonely. The next night, Yura came back again, and the night after that. It became their routine. Do-yun would work and Yura would keep him company. They would talk about everything and nothing. 1 week later, she met Hana. Yura was waiting in the observation deck when she heard small footsteps running down the corridor. A tiny human burst through the door, her ponytails bouncing, her face bright with energy. "Daddy, Daddy, I finished my homework early," and she stopped when she saw Yura. Her eyes went wide. Yura was suddenly aware of how she must look to a human child, 7 feet tall, covered in dark purple scales, yellow eyes with vertical pupils, a long tail, sharp claws. She expected the child to scream, to run away, to cry for her father. Instead, Hana walked straight up to her and said, "You are so pretty. Are you a dragon?" "Daddy, she is a dragon. Can I touch your scales? What is your name? Do you breathe fire? Why are you in Daddy's special room? Are you his friend?" The questions came so fast that Yura could not answer any of them. She looked at Doyun for help. He just smiled, told you she was trouble. "I am Yura," she managed to say. "I am Hana. We are best friends now. It is decided." We just met." "That does not matter. I like you, so we are friends." Hana grabbed Yura's clawed hand with her tiny fingers. She showed no fear at all. "Come on, I want to show you my drawings." Yura looked at Doyun again. He shrugged. When Hana decides something, it is better to just go along with it. So Yura let the tiny human pull her through the corridors to a small cleaning closet that Doyun had converted into a little home. There was a cot in the corner with a stuffed animal on it, a small table covered with colorful papers, a shelf with human books and toys. It was the smallest living space Yura had ever seen, but it felt warm. It felt like a home. Hana showed her every drawing, spaceships and aliens and her father and something she called puppies that existed on Earth. She talked constantly, explaining each picture with serious enthusiasm. "This one is you," Hana said, holding up a new drawing. It showed a purple dragon with a crown on her head. "You are the dragon princess. See, I drew you very pretty." Yura took the drawing with shaking hands. No one had ever made something for her before. Not like this. Not with pure, innocent kindness. "Thank you," she whispered. "I will keep it forever." Later, after Hana fell asleep on her cot, Yura and Doyun sat outside in the corridor. "She is wonderful," Yura said. "She is my whole world," Doyun replied. "Everything I do is for her, to give her a good life, to make her happy." He looked at Yura carefully. "Can I ask you something?" "Yes." "The fire you cannot make. What exactly is the problem?" Yura explained. The weak plasma glands, the advanced techniques she could never master, the years of failure and shame. Doyun listened carefully. Then he asked a strange question. "What do you know about basic energy control? The simple stuff before all the advanced techniques?" Yura blinked. "Basic? I never learned basic. I am a princess. I was put in advanced classes when I was 6 years old." Doyun nodded slowly. His eyes had a thoughtful look. "Maybe," he said carefully, "that is the problem." "What do you mean?" "On Earth we have a saying, you cannot build a house on sand. If the foundation is weak, the whole building will fall, no matter how beautiful it is, no matter how expensive the materials." Yura felt something stir in her chest, something that might have been hope. "You think I should start over, from the beginning?" "I think nobody ever taught you the basics. They just assumed you would know them because of who you are, because of what you are." Doyun looked at her with kind, steady eyes. "Humans do not assume anything. We learn everything from zero, step by step. It is slow, but the things we build that way, they stay standing." For the first time in years, Yura felt like maybe, just maybe, there was a path forward. And it started from zero. The Dragon Princess failed every test until human single dad Janitor instructed her to start from zero. Part 3. Yura stopped going to her classes at the academy. The first day she did not show up, her instructor sent a message. The second day, he sent a warning. By the third day, he had stopped trying, Everyone assumed she had given up. The failed princess had finally accepted her shame. They were wrong. Every night, Yura went to the observation deck. Every night, Do-yeon was there. And every night, he taught her things that no royal instructor had ever bothered to explain. He started with breathing. "You are thinking about fire," Do-yeon said on their first night of training. He watched Yura strain and struggle to produce even a tiny spark. Her face was twisted with effort. Her claws dug into her palms, but nothing happened. "Of course I am thinking about fire," Yura said through gritted teeth. "That is the whole point." "No," Do-yeon shook his head. "Fire is where you want to go, but you do not understand how to get there. You are trying to jump to the end without walking the path." He pulled a small object from his pocket, a thin stick with a red tip. He scratched it against a rough surface, and suddenly there was a tiny flame dancing on the end. Yura stared. "What is that?" "A match. Humans cannot breathe fire. We cannot make energy with our bodies, but we learn to create flame anyway." He held up the match carefully. "Do you know how?" "Magic." Do-yeon laughed. "No magic, science, understanding. We learned that rubbing things together makes heat. We learned that certain materials burn at certain temperatures. We learned that fire needs air to live." He blew out the match. "Fire is not mystery, Yura. It is chemistry, it is physics, it is cause and effect." "But I am Drakari. Fire is natural to us. We are born with it." "Exactly. You are born with the ability to make fire, but that does not mean you understand fire." Do-yeon sat down across from her. "Your teachers wanted you to breathe plasma, but did anyone ever explain what plasma actually is? How it forms? What your body does to create it?" Yura was silent. The answer was no. No one had ever explained anything. They had just expected her to do it. All Drakari could do it, so she should be able to do it too. "Your people have a gift," Do-yeon continued. "But gifts can be a problem. When something comes naturally, you never have to learn how it works. You just do it. But for you, the gift did not come. And because no one ever taught the basics, you have been trying to do advanced things without understanding the foundation." He reached into his bag and pulled out a book. It was old and worn, with pictures of atoms and molecules on the cover. "This is a human children's book. It teaches basic physics and chemistry. I used it to teach Hana about how the world works." He held it out to her. "Start here." Yura took the book. It was written in simple human language with colorful pictures. It looked like something for very young children. "You want me to learn from this?" "I want you to start from zero, just like every human child does, just like Hana did." Do-yeon's voice was gentle but firm. "There is no shame in going back to the beginning. The only shame is refusing to learn." Yura looked at the book for a long time. Part of her was embarrassed. She was a princess. She was 23 years old. She should not be learning from children's books. But another part of her, a bigger part, was tired of failing, tired of shame, tired of being the dragon who could not breathe fire. "Okay," she said quietly, "I will try." Over the next weeks, Yura learned things she never knew she needed to learn. She learned about atoms, the tiny particles that make up everything in the universe. She learned about energy, how it cannot be created or destroyed, only changed from one form to another. She learned about heat and light and the relationship between them. Do-yeon brought her more books, simple ones at first, then harder ones as she understood more. Human biology books that explained how muscles work, engineering books that showed how machines transform energy, medical books that described how bodies heal. "Your plasma glands are not broken," Do-yeon said one night after reading through some alien medical texts Yura had obtained. "They are underdeveloped. When you were young and should have been doing simple exercises to strengthen them, you were instead doing advanced techniques that caused damage." "Damage?" Yura felt fear grip her heart. "You mean I made them worse?" "Yes, but damage can heal. It just takes time and the right approach." He showed her a human physical therapy book. When humans hurt their muscles, we do not ask them to lift heavy weights. We start with tiny movements, gentle exercises. We rebuild slowly. So they did exactly that. The first exercise was simple. Yura would try to warm her hand. Not fire, not plasma, just heat. Just a tiny increase in temperature that she could feel but not see. It took her 3 days to do it. 3 days of focusing, of breathing, of trying to feel the energy inside her body. 3 days of frustration and almost giving up. But on the third night she felt it. A tiny warmth in her palm, barely noticeable, but real. "I did it," she whispered, staring at her hand in wonder. "I actually did it." Hana, who had been doing her homework nearby, jumped up and clapped her hands. "Yay, I knew you could do it. You are the best dragon princess ever." Doyun smiled. "That is step 1. Now we do it again and again until it is easy. Then we move to step 2. It was slow, painfully slow. Some nights, Yura felt like she was making no progress at all. She would watch videos of Dracari children half her age creating beautiful flames and feel the old shame creeping back. But Doyun was always there with quiet encouragement. "Humans did not learn to fly in a day," he told her. "It took us thousands of years of dreaming and failing and trying again. First we made kites, then gliders, then planes that barely worked, then planes that worked well, then rockets." He pointed out the window at the space station around them. "Now we live among the stars. Every step mattered. Every failure taught us something." Hana helped too in her own way. She would sit beside Yura while they both worked, the little girl on her math homework and the princess on her energy exercises. Whenever Yura got frustrated, Hana would pat her scaled hand. "Daddy says it is okay to be bad at things," Hana would say seriously. "Being bad means you are learning. If you were good already, there would be nothing to learn." Yura never forgot those words. Weeks turned into months. Slowly, carefully, Yura rebuilt her abilities from the ground up. She learned to warm her hand easily. Then she learned to make it hot. Then she learned to produce a tiny glow, a faint light that came from heat becoming visible. Each step was small. Each step was built on the one before it. Each step was solid, unmovable, a foundation that would never crumble. The academy sent messages. Her father sent messages. Angry words about duty and honor and shame. Yura did not reply to any of them. She had more important things to do. One night, after 3 months of training, Yura held up her hand in the observation deck. Do-yun and Hana watched. The little girl was holding her breath with excitement. Yura focused. She felt the energy in her body, understood how it moved and changed. She guided it carefully to her palm, warming it slowly, letting the heat build in a controlled way. And then she produced a flame. It was small, no bigger than a candle. It flickered gently in the recycled air of the station. By Dracari standards, it was nothing. A baby could do better. But Yura had made it, she understood it, she controlled it. She started to cry. "Oh no," Hana jumped up worried. "Did it hurt? Are you okay?" "I am okay," Yura said, laughing and crying at the same time. "I am more than okay, I am wonderful." Doyun pretended to be very interested in something on the floor, but Yura saw him wipe his eyes when he thought she was not looking. That night, Hana fell asleep with her head on Yura's lap. The little girl had insisted on celebrating with extra dessert and had crashed from the sugar excitement. "Thank you," Yura said quietly to Doyun. "I can never repay what you have given me." "You do not owe me anything. You did the work, I just showed you where to start." "It is more than that, and you know it." Yura looked down at the sleeping child. "You and Hana, you gave me something I never had before." "What is that?" Yura thought about it. The grand palace where she grew up, cold and empty despite its beauty. The instructors who saw her only as a problem to be solved. The father who saw her only as a disappointment. "A home," she said finally. "You gave me a home." Doyun did not say anything. He just reached over and patted her shoulder gently. In the silence of the observation deck, surrounded by stars, the dragon princess and the human janitor sat together like family. Because that is what they had become. The dragon princess failed every test until human single dad janitor instructed her to start from zero. Part 4. The message came on a morning like any other. Yura was in the observation deck, practicing her flame control, when her communication device started beeping with urgent alerts. She checked it and felt her blood turn cold. Prince T1 of the Kralith Dominion had issued a formal challenge. The Kralith were rivals of the Drakari. For centuries, the two empires had competed for territory and power. They were similar in many ways, both being reptilian species with the ability to generate plasma. But the Kralith were slightly smaller, slightly weaker, and they had never forgiven the Drakari for being better than them. T1 was the same age as Yura, but where she had failed, he had succeeded beyond anyone's dreams. He had mastered plasma manipulation at 4 years old. He had defeated warriors twice his age in combat by the time he was 10. He was considered the greatest prodigy the Kralith had produced in generations. And now he wanted to fight her. The challenge was broadcast across every coalition channel. T1 appeared on holographic screens throughout the galaxy, his silver scales gleaming, his yellow eyes filled with cruel amusement. The Drakari claim to be superior, he said. Yet their own princess cannot light a candle. I challenge Yura of House Varen to a duel of elemental mastery. If she refuses, the entire galaxy will know that the Drakari are nothing but loud words and empty fire. Yura watched the message in silence. Her hands were shaking. That night, she told Doyun what had happened. Do not accept, he said immediately. His face was tight with worry. There is no shame in refusing. He is trying to trap you, to humiliate your family through you. If I refuse, my father's political position will suffer. Other empires will see us as weak. Wars could start. Yura shook her head. I have to accept. You have only been training for 4 months. Your fire is strong enough now, but against someone like T1 who has trained his whole life. Doyun stopped. He could not finish the sentence. I know he will probably defeat me. Yura looked at her hands, at the faint warmth glowing beneath her scales. But I have to try. Why? She thought about it. The old Yura would have hidden from this challenge. She would have made excuses, avoided the confrontation, accepted another failure quietly. But she was not the old Yura anymore. Because the shame is not in losing, she said slowly. The shame is in never trying. A human taught me that. Doyun stared at her for a long moment. Then he sighed. You are going to do this no matter what I say, are you? Yes. Then we better make sure you are as ready as possible. They trained harder than ever. Doyun pushed her to build her stamina, her control, her efficiency. He taught her human strategies, ways of thinking about combat that no Drakari had ever considered. T1 is powerful, Doyun said, but power is not everything. Humans have defeated stronger enemies many times throughout our history. Do you know how? How? By being smart, by understanding our enemies better than they understand themselves, by not fighting their battle. He drew a diagram on a piece of paper. T1 will try to overwhelm you with force. That is the Kralith way. They believe strength is everything, but strength that is wasted is not strength at all. He taught her to observe, to analyze, to look for weaknesses and inefficiencies. He showed her videos of human martial arts, where small fighters defeated large ones not through power but through technique. He explained concepts like patience and endurance and the importance of not giving everything at once. Fire needs fuel, he reminded her. T1's plasma uses energy from his body. If he attacks with maximum force from the beginning, he will tire himself out. You do not have to match him. You just have to outlast him. The day of the duel arrived. The Academy's grand arena was filled with representatives from every coalition species. Thousands of beings had come to watch. Holographic cameras broadcast the event to billions more across the galaxy. Yura stood at one end of the arena trying to stay calm. She could see her father's holographic image watching from a special viewing platform. His face showed nothing, but she knew what he was thinking. Another failure, another shame for the family. Across the arena, T1 stood with perfect confidence. His silver scales caught the light beautifully. Blue flames already danced around his hands, a casual display of power meant to intimidate. "I am surprised you came," he called out. "I thought the broken princess would run and hide." The crowd murmured. Yura said nothing. "No response. Perhaps you truly are as pathetic as they say," T1 laughed. "This will be over quickly." A bell sounded. The duel began. T1 struck first. A massive wave of blue plasma erupted from his hands, screaming across the arena with enough force to melt steel. It was beautiful and terrifying, a display of raw power that made the audience gasp. Yura did not try to block it. She dove to the side, rolling smoothly away from the attack. The plasma crashed into the arena wall behind where she had been standing, leaving a glowing crater. T1 attacked again and again. Each blast was huge, overwhelming, the kind of power that should have ended any fight in seconds. But each time, Yura moved just enough to avoid it. She did not run. She did not panic. She watched. "Stop dodging and fight," T1 shouted. His voice had a hint of frustration now. "Are you just going to run away like a coward?" Yura remained silent. She watched his movements. She studied his fire. Just as Doyon had predicted, T1 was wasteful. His attacks were impressive, but they used far more energy than necessary. His plasma burned too hot, consumed too much fuel, drained his reserves with every blast. He was powerful, but he was inefficient. T1 kept attacking. 5 minutes passed. 10 minutes. His flames, which had started as a brilliant blue, began to fade toward a lighter color. His movements, which had been swift and confident, started to slow. "What is wrong with you?" he demanded, breathing harder now. "Fight back. Show me your pathetic fire so I can destroy it." Yura finally spoke. "You are tired." "What?" "Your flames are weaker. Your breathing is heavy. You have been wasting your energy trying to overwhelm me with power you cannot sustain." She stood calmly in the center of the arena. "That is the problem with people like you. You are so used to winning quickly that you never learn to fight for long." T1's eyes widened with anger. "You dare lecture me, you who could not even pass a basic exam." "I failed those exams because I was trying to do things the way people like you do them, with raw power, with force, with no understanding of what I was actually doing." Yura felt a peace settle over her. "But I learned a different way. A human way. Start from zero, build understanding, waste nothing." She raised her hand. The flame she produced was not impressive. It was not a massive wave of destruction. It was small, focused, a tight beam of plasma no thicker than a finger. But it was precise. Yura had spent months understanding heat, understanding energy, understanding exactly how much power she needed and exactly where to put it. Her flame was not hot enough to kill, but it was exactly hot enough to disrupt the thermal regulation in Kralith's scales. The beam hit T1 in the chest before he could react. It was not a wound. It was a message. His scales flickered, confused by the precise temperature change, and for a moment his whole body shivered. "What?" He tried to summon more fire, but his reserves were too low. His flames sputtered weakly. Yura struck again. Another precise beam, this time to his arm. His muscles cramped from the thermal disruption. He dropped to one knee. "Yield," she said calmly. "Never. I am T1 of the Kralith. I do not lose to broken." A third beam to his leg. He collapsed completely. The arena was silent. No one could believe what they had just seen. The greatest prodigy of the Kralith, defeated by the princess who could not pass a basic exam. Then a small voice broke the silence. From the maintenance section, where workers were allowed to watch, Hana stood on her chair and screamed at the top of her lungs. "That is my best friend." Yura could not help it, she laughed. And somehow, her laughter seemed to break a spell over the crowd. They erupted into noise, not the polite applause reserved for expected victories, but genuine shock and wonder. A princess who fought like no Dracari before, who won not through inherited power but through something new. In the maintenance section, Do-yun was crying. He did not try to hide it this time. He just hugged his daughter and let the tears fall freely. Emperor Tisung's holographic image stared at his daughter with an expression she had never seen before. It was not disappointment. It was not shame. It was respect. Yura walked across the arena, past the fallen T1, past the cheering crowds. She walked straight to the maintenance section, climbed over the railing, and hugged Do-yun and Hana tight. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for teaching me to start from zero." Do-yun just held her, this strange family he had accidentally created, while the galaxy watched in amazement. The Dragon Princess failed every test, until human single dad Janitor instructed her to start from zero. Part 5. 6 months after the duel, Yura stood before the Coalition Council as the newly appointed ambassador of Dracari human relations. It was a position that had never existed before. No one had ever thought humans needed special diplomatic attention. They were just a small, young species from a tiny blue planet. They had nothing special to offer. But Yura had changed that perception. Her victory over T1 had sent shockwaves through the galaxy. People wanted to know how she had done it, how the failed princess had defeated a prodigy. The answer, when it came out, was almost impossible to believe. She had been taught by a janitor, a human janitor who cleaned floors for a living. At first, many species laughed at this. Surely it was a joke. Surely the real explanation involved secret Dracari training or advanced alien technology. But as more details emerged, as videos of Yura's unusual training methods spread across the networks, the laughter turned to curiosity. Humans, it seemed, had a way of learning that no one else used. They started from zero. Emperor Tisung had been reluctant to create the new ambassador position. Relations with humans were barely worth his attention, he argued, but Yura had political power now. Her victory had made her famous. People listened to her words, and she used that power to push for change. "Humans have much to teach us," she told the Coalition Council on her first day as ambassador. The massive chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of species. They all watched her with curious eyes. "I know what you are thinking," Yura continued. "Humans are weak. They have no natural weapons, no special abilities. They die quickly and break easily. Why should the greatest empires in the galaxy learn anything from them?" She paused, letting the question hang in the air. "Because humans have never had advantages. Every achievement in their history was built from nothing. When they wanted to fly, they could not grow wings. So they studied birds and air and physics until they understood how flight worked. Then they built machines that could carry them into the sky." She gestured at the space station around them. When they wanted to reach the stars, they could not simply wish themselves across the void. So they studied rockets and fuel and orbital mechanics. They failed countless times. They died trying, but they kept going. And now they live among us, traveling between stars just like species who evolved for it. The council was silent, listening. "We have spent centuries perfecting our strengths, our natural abilities, our inherited powers, but humans have spent their history doing something different. They transform weakness into capability. They start from zero and build understanding step by step. And because they understand what they do, not just how to do it, they can teach others." She told them her story then, the failures, the shame, the The janitor who mopped floors and taught a princess what fire really was. She did not hide anything. She did not make herself sound better than she had been. When she finished, the council chamber was quiet for a long moment. Then the Velith representative spoke. "What exactly are you proposing, Ambassador?" "An exchange program. Human educators teaching in our schools, starting with children who, like me, have struggled with their natural abilities. Children who have been labeled as failures because they could not do things the traditional way." The proposal passed, not unanimously but with enough support to begin. The first human teachers arrived on Drakari worlds within months. They found students who had been abandoned by the traditional system, young dragons who could not breathe fire, warriors whose plasma glands were weak or damaged, children who had been told they were broken. The human teachers did not care about any of that. They started from zero: basic physics, simple chemistry, the fundamental laws of energy and heat. They taught slowly and carefully, building understanding before power. They praised small successes and reframed failures as learning opportunities. Within a year, students who had been written off as hopeless began to show improvement. Not dramatic, overnight transformations, but steady progress built on solid foundations. They understood what they were doing, and because they understood, they could control it. Within a generation, the Drakari Empire had more warriors capable of precise, efficient plasma manipulation than ever before in its history. Not because they were naturally stronger, but because they finally understood what their bodies were actually doing. Other species noticed. The Velith requested human teachers for their crystal-shaping academies. The Alori asked for help with their psionic training programs. Even the Kralith, swallowing their pride after T1's defeat, quietly invited human educators to work with their struggling students. Humans became famous not for power, but for teaching. They had developed methods over thousands of years of having no natural advantages. Methods that broke complex skills into simple steps. Methods that built understanding from the ground up. Methods that worked for anyone, regardless of species or ability. And it all started with a janitor and his mop. Do-yun never accepted Yura's offer to leave his cleaning position. She had tried many times. She offered him luxury apartments on the Drakari homeworld. She offered him positions as an official advisor with enormous salaries. She offered him anything he wanted. He always refused. "Someone has to keep this station clean," he would say with his usual shrug. "Besides, Hana likes her school here. Her friends are here. Why would I take her away from that?" But he did accept one thing: a small upgrade to his living quarters. Instead of the tiny cleaning closet, he and Hana now lived in a modest apartment on the station's middle levels. It had 2 bedrooms, a real kitchen, and most importantly, a large viewport that looked out at the stars. Every week, without fail, Princess Yura of the Drakari Empire would visit that apartment. She would sit on the floor with Hana, who was now 11, and convinced that she personally was responsible for Yura's success. They would eat dinner together, play games, tell stories. It felt like family, because that is what they were. One evening, as the stars turned slowly outside the viewport, Yura asked Do-yun a question. "Tomorrow I have to address the full Coalition Council. They want to hear about expanding the education program to more species." She sighed. "I still do not know what to say. What message matters most?" Do-yun thought about it while washing dishes. His hands moved with the same steady rhythm he used for everything. "Tell them that the greatest empires are not the ones with the most power," he said finally. "They are the ones that never stop learning." Yura nodded slowly. "What else?" "Tell them that every master was once a disaster. Every expert was once a beginner. The only true failure is refusing to start again." He turned to look at her with those warm brown eyes. "And tell them that wisdom can come from anywhere, from a princess or a beginner, from a general or a janitor." "Especially from a janitor," Yura said softly. Hana bounced into the room, demanding that they play her favorite card game. The serious moment passed, replaced by laughter and competition and the comfortable noise of family. Later that night, after Hana had fallen asleep and Do-yun was reading quietly in his chair, Yura stood at the viewport and looked at the stars. She thought about how far she had come. From the broken princess crying alone in a dusty observation deck to the ambassador who was changing how the galaxy thought about learning itself. She thought about the students across a dozen worlds who were now being taught the human way. Children who would have been failures under the old system, now building solid foundations that would support them for their entire lives. She thought about Do-yun, who asked for nothing and gave everything, who saw a crying alien in a forgotten corridor and chose to help simply because helping was the right thing to do. And she thought about humanity, this strange, fragile species that had no special powers but had somehow given the galaxy something more valuable than power. They had given it a new way to learn. Years later, historians would write about the great change that swept through coalition space. They would call it the Foundation Revolution. They would analyze its impact on education, on military training, on scientific development. But they would never quite capture the simple truth at the heart of it all. A janitor mopped floors, a princess asked for help, and a little girl with gap-toothed smile decided they were all best friends. The rest was just details. In her apartment on Station Kepler 77, Ambassador Yura of the Dracari Empire tucked a worn photograph into her pocket. It showed a small flame, barely visible, hovering above a scaled purple hand. The first flame she had ever truly created. Do-yun had taken the picture that night, saying she would want to remember where she started. He was right, she looked at it every day. Because the flame was small, but the foundation beneath it was unbreakable, and that made all the difference.